gift.
That's my gift.
Your gift to us.
That's right. Now let's stay in L.A. The devastation is terrible. I've got so many thoughts about it, but my eyes have been opened to another level of learning we can achieve about life on the third rail.
Let's have it.
Because I feel if the show has accomplished nothing else in its history,
Nothing else in its history.
we've
Really sad.
learned about the third rail and
Yes.
how to distinguish it from the lives that we lead.
Yeah.
They lead a different life.
Totally.
And I think we've learned that Americans have turned over politics to the wrong people and apparently don't care. It could be that life in the United States is still so strong and still chugs along so apparently satisfactorily that we're still able to ignore the complete uselessness of the people we elect.
Huh.
All right?
That's
with me so far?
Tough
Yeah.
road, but okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so now I get a letter that I didn't know I was going to get, but it leads into my thinking on this. It's from Scott. Good morning. The LA fires leave so much to unpack. First, it looks like the Democrats were in search of and attempting to elevate another biracial female politician, LA Mayor Karen Bass. Now, she was in Ghana when the fires broke out.
Okay.
She went on a Washington delegation, was going over to Ghana for the installation of a new fake leader in Ghana. And so she
Puppet
went.
regime.
And we'll get back to Karen in a moment. The L.A. mayor in Africa serves about as much benefit for constituents as Ilhan Omar's trip to Cuba benefited Congressional District 5, but I digress. Bass's absence amid the fires brought to mind the smell of burning tires in Minneapolis amid the inept leadership of Fry and Walz. Minnesotans are clearly not alone in inept Democratic leadership. The fact that Boss sought to cut the L.A. Fire Department by a budget of $17.5 million will hopefully be her downfall. That is a fact. That firefighting budget in L.A. was cut. She wanted it to be $23 million, but it was cut to $17.5.
Okay.
As I watched L.A.'s reliably Democrat Congressional District 32 laid to waste by fire, I just wondered how many Teslas were burning in those expensive garages and just how many carbon credits will have to be purchased and trees planted to offset the carbon emissions. Certainly, the always available climate change will be the culprit once the flames have died down. Will the 100,000 people forced to evacuate be able to find hotels, or are they being used to house newcomers? A question worth asking, I believe. By newcomers, he means illegals. Finally, I have done a little research regarding the FEMA funding for the care and feeding of illegal aliens. Oops, I meant to say newcomers. And see that it is a federal funding shell game of epic proportions. Hard to actually say what or whose budgets were moved for this purpose, but I am hopeful that the money can be diverted rather than printed, as Sleepy Joe has done, to help the uninsured in L.A. who lost their homes. All kidding aside, having lost a home to a fire 20 years ago, it is not a laughing matter, but the political irony is difficult to ignore. Hail the Flashlight King, Town Councilman Scott Nelson. He's thinking along the lines that I've been thinking. Karen Bass is the mayor of Los Angeles. And she's getting a lot of criticism because when the fires broke out, she was in Ghana. And at first blush, you would think, well, there's really no reason for the mayor of Los Angeles to be in Ghana. That's
right. It's a weird flex.
And in fact, she went to Ghana knowing full well that red flag alerts were in play, and that second fact that's been receiving a lot of criticism is that there's no water to fight the fires. The spokespeople for the Los Angeles Fire Department say the reservoirs have been full. They've had record winter water in L.A.
Okay.
The reservoirs were filled. There's a lot of people want to believe that Gavin Newsom went out and turned the taps so the water would all run into the ocean. As near as I can tell, that's not true. I think Gavin Newsom is a dreadful, dreadful cur, but I don't think he emptied the reservoirs. They've been tapped. What probably is the most accurate statement is that there's been so much pressure and so much demand for water that the water supply has not been able to keep up. They turn on a hose and it's a dribble. They can't get enough water.
But there was a story with Newsom and dams and protecting a class of fish, right? Wasn't there a story?
That's not in my interest right now. I don't know that those dams had anything to do with the demand for water in L.A. County.
All right.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and you'll just have to correct me. Maybe next week or something. Correct me.
Wait a couple days.
Yeah. Let it sink in. 72 hours.
No, what I'm saying is let's try to keep this all in context. This
Sure.
is a catastrophic fire. Much of the demand for the water was established by homeowners who, with great futility, the poor homeowners were out there with their garden hose at
Right.
full blast trying to save their property. And multiply that by the thousands and thousands, and you can see the demand on water. And then the fire department came along, and they plugged into the hydrants. And at first they had water, and then they slowly noticed the water is disappearing. I don't think... if somebody can prove me wrong, I'm more than happy to say that. I don't think the absence of water is a political problem any more than the demand for water is a political problem. But we tend to make everything political.
Yeah, we do.
So I don't have anything to say about their use of water. I thought maybe they're doing the best they can. It's a difficult topography. There's nothing in this area to make it analogous to. I've tried desperately to come up with a topographical analogy in Minnesota, and you just can't. This is a real difficult area to fight fires, and then it's all compounded by the wind. Let's get back to Karen Bass, the absent mayor, who's now back in Los Angeles. Shamed enough, apparently, to have it arranged for her to get back to L.A. as quickly as possible. Let's start with the fact that there's nothing she can do about these fires.
Right. But be on hand.
Well, even to be on hand, there's nothing she could have accomplished. What we see in her absence is life on the third rail. She's not the mayor to make sure fires get put out.
Okay.
She's the mayor to make sure DEI is enforced.
Yep.
She's the mayor who is supposed to go to Ghana because that's what third rail people get to do once they've achieved a kind of third rail royalty, which would be accomplished by becoming the mayor of a large enough city like L.A. I don't think Melvin Carter and Jacob Fry are royalty enough to have been summoned to the Ghana.
No, they're still in the minor leagues.
To
Right.
have been summoned to the Ghana trip. That was for a little bit higher level of third rail.
Like a Brandon Johnson from Chicago?
He probably was high enough to be summoned. I don't know if he went.
Okay.
What we're seeing in the case of L.A. is that the absence of her ability to, I looked her up, she worked for a time as a physician's assistant, but virtually her entire life, and she's in her 60s, virtually, if not 70, virtually her entire life has been in the public sector. She's a third rail veteran, and virtually her entire life has been dedicated to life on the third rail, not dedicated to the people she ostensibly serves. I'm not suggesting she's a bad human being. I don't know anything about her. But she's in the industry of politics.
Right.
She's not in the service of politics. She's in the industry. And in that industry, it's a perk to get a trip to Ghana. It's a perk to have a nice office. It's a perk to do all this stuff that has nothing to do with life.